Panther Nation, the C3 Podcast, brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com.
I had fun, man. Just out, you guys joking. We working at the same time. Putting the work in as a team. Like I said, I'm just glad to be with the guys.
My favorite night of the week.
We're gonna go out there and we're playing to win. We're not out here just to show up. We're out here to win.
I don't want guys that want to win, because really, who doesn't? Nobody wants to win. Everybody wants to win. I want players that hate to win.
This embodies everything that we are as a team, as an organization. Our motto is keep pounding, and that's what we do. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, what's up, Panther fans? It's your boy, the Professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn. And this is the C3 Podcast, brought to you by Carolina Cat Chronicles, where every Tuesday night we chop up the latest Panthers news and opinions from the fan perspective, and I do it with some of my favorite friends. And Joe Riolano from the Low Country is here tonight again, as usual. I hope you're doing well, my man.
I am more blessed. It's incredibly beautiful today. A day today here in Hanahan, Charleston. It was hot, actually. Weather was glorious, but it was hot, and that's just a reminder summer's on the way. We're here tonight to talk some Carolina football. We have had rookie minicamp. We've got some going on in Buffalo still, and we look forward to bringing you those chili ice up sun picks.
All right, man. We got a special guest tonight, Joe. We got Gene from Buc What You Heard tonight. Gene, what the buck is up?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's I wish football would start on Sunday. That's kind of where I'm at, man. Watching these games from 2016 is getting old, and I'm ready for some new games. I'm ready to see what our draft picks and see what different teams are all about this year.
Amen.
All right, well, guys, tonight's show is, I think this is episode 17.14, and it's mini camps and Buc What You Heard. Tonight we're going to be getting into, we'll talk about the latest news with the Panthers coming out of rookie minicamp. The hype is hypened with Christian McCaffrey's historically fast feet. Curtis Samuel single-handedly dismisses questions about his hands, and there's been a lot of work for Taylor Moton. So as we get into that, we encourage everybody, if you're listening right now, go ahead and smash that like button on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, hit the like button, give us a share, tell a friend about the show, and if you guys are feeling frisky, you can check out the YouTube comments or our website and find our Patreon link and give us a little support. Hopefully the show's getting better each and every week, and I think I got, hopefully, fingers crossed, things are working right now exactly how I want them to be. All right, let's jump in, guys. Gene, you'll have to join us for a little camp talk right off the bat. The Panthers had their mini camp this past week, and the hype was hype as hype could get with Christian McCaffrey. They would show videos of him, and he would say, they would be like, look at how fast he looks in one-on-ones, and then I would watch it, and he would be running, and he would look pretty quick. But it wasn't like, I don't know what you could tell from that. But, Joey, a lot of people talking about Christian McCaffrey after this week.
Oh, yeah, man. People are excited. He's got some really high expectations. And I think people are putting a lot of the season's hopes on him. Unfair. But what they see from him is this really, fantastic college career he had. He has football, and the expectations are high. I think we need to pump the brakes on that a little bit. But he is going to come in. He's going to give us an element to this offense that we've been missing for a long time. And I can't wait. I'm really excited about what he can bring, but I just don't want to expect too much this first year.
If I can jump in here real quick, I think that's good for the rest of the draft picks because expectations are so high for a Christian McCaffrey that a guy like a Curtis Samuel, I know he's had issues with his lower back, but maybe he can come in and fly under the radar and get out there and make some plays. So, that's always good that, you have all your expectations on a Christian McCaffrey, but guys like Eric Wallace and Kieras Garrett, maybe they can come in and make some noise without, having all that weight on their shoulders. So that could work out for some of your other draft picks.
Joey, was it you that sent me a message? I saw somewhere that said that Christian McCaffrey has the fastest feet in Carolina Panther history.
Yes, I did see one of the reporters who had been there. I think it was Jeremy Igo to put a name to this. Has been covering the Panthers for a very long time. He said he was amazed at how fast Christian McCaffrey's footwork was. It was, he said, noticeably faster than anyone else. And he said he's ever seen at Panthers Rookie Minicamp. And that includes D'Angelo Williams. So that's some really high praise, I think. And does cause reason for some really serious excitement from the fan base.
Yeah, Cody Lackney is on board with the milkshake nickname. Milkshake, White Lightning, White Milk, all types of different things we can give at Christian McCaffrey. I think it is exciting. I will say Jeremy Igo does, I think it's him, if he's the huddle guy, he does get very excited in the camp periods about identifying the greatest things ever. But it's fantastic, and I think Gene's onto something too with taking away or drawing some of the attention. And maybe it's enough of a storyline to keep the Cam Newton shoulder injury kind of under the radar a little bit more. Not that that's a big deal, but you don't want these distractions. And maybe this is a positive distraction in many ways, like Gene was saying. Another thing I saw, guys, one of the things that I've been is that we all have our guys that we like and that we want to turn out to be great. And for me, it was Curtis Samuel. I started going through that prospect list, and I was trying to pick a guy that I thought was a realistic option for the Panthers. I was like, this is a guy. So I kind of fell in love with him. And the thing you see is that people say, when you listen to people talk on Twitter, on YouTube, wherever it may be, we and I'm one of them, we regurgitate the reports we've heard. We just kind of paraphrase the draft profiles we've heard, and what they have said. And some of those draft profiles have talked about Samuel's not having the best hands, being a body catcher or something, or no, just not having the best hands, having some drops. Well, people latched onto that, and you hear people say, well, you're worried if this guy is going to be another problem catching or whatever. So what they were saying is, anyway, I think that was kind of overblown. I think that Curtis Samuels goes out there and single-handedly dismissed questions about his hands, because I saw a tweet that said Curtis Samuel goes up and grabs amazing one-handed catch. So he goes, I think now that's the buzz, is that go from a draft guy that can't catch to now he could be the next Odell Beckham Jr.
You know what's interesting that you talk about that? I was watching Adam Schefter, and he was reading a lot of the draft reports, like for J.J. Watt, for who was your cornerback a couple of years ago, Josh Norman.
Yeah.
So he went through all these guys that are Pro Bowlers and read the initial draft reports that people were writing about him, and it's just insane some of the things that people were saying. And it's on paper. These guys have to go out and prove themselves, and when they do, I mean, you prove the doubters wrong. Like you, I'm a big Samuel fan myself, and I think that he's one of those guys that could definitely succeed in that offense.
Joe, can we latch on how quickly, or are we just dying to find something to tweet about, to talk about?
Of course, we are.
It's that time of the year.
Time of year where there's not a whole lot of football news going on. So these guys have a job, and they want to keep their job, so they try to find anything to write about. And the non-reporters they gotta have something to put up on their site or their blog or whatever, and so this is the kind of thing that happens. But at the same time, I think it's valuable. There's some value to it, you know. That we have a set of eyes there that can tell us, you know, what we may be hearing or what we may have been concerned about isn't necessarily the case, or we should be as worried about it as well. That's always nice to know.
What kind of gets me at times is a lot of the issues that these people bring up are coachable things that you can go out and through repetition get better at. So yeah, I understand that sometimes they may be a red flag, but also it may be something that the player is aware of. If he's watching his own game film, he's seeing, hey, I have this deficiency. Let me go out and fix it. And that's what a lot of players have done coming into the NFL. They know where their deficiencies are, and they go out and get better at them. And then when they come into the NFL, they are able to make impacts.
Yeah, I think that is one thing too. You get a limited amount of that. I mean, I think you do get a lot of coaching in college. I mean, you get some, but it seems that they're coaching to what you need to do at that level, not and maybe they can fix these things. Maybe, like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's anything wrong right at this point. Like I mean, there is and there isn't. You know, I mean, I guess the draft gurus can tell you every game and one play that indicates that this guy can or can't catch or can or can't play. But I think ultimately we're excited. It's good to hear this news, and it's really exciting to hear about Christian McCaffrey and Samuels kind of dominating those headlines. And I saw on Facebook Live, Blake Cato said the additions are great, but will Shula evolve to allow them to be great? You know, and that goes to that question about coaching. And, you know, Gene, that kind of touches you at some point. Yeah,
absolutely. And you're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the coaching carousel that Tampa's been going through since John Gruden. It's just been ridiculous. And it, you know, having gone through it as a fan and watching all the changes, it really makes you astute to some of these other things that other teams are going through. And you're right. I think that coaching can definitely limit what you do with the weapons that you have right now. I mean, what if he's limited on what he decides to do with a McCaffrey? And you know, you can only go so far with your offensive coordinator. And we've experienced that here in Tampa over the years.
Yeah, Shula was there when you guys had Warwick Dunn, a lot of people talk about, and he was able to use Warwick Dunn effectively. So a lot of people are kind of latching onto that, as well as I think that Shula is going to respond just fine. There's a lot riding on it this year. There's a lot of pressure. You go out there and you get them the weapons, and it's gonna be time to get these guys in there. The question though is how much will they actually be a part of the game plan? I think McCaffrey is they're gonna game plan him in, but will they kind of gingerly bring him along, or will they try to force the issue? You know, if you think about it, we drafted Devin Funchess in the second round, and they said this guy shouldn't, the plan wasn't for him to contribute until the next year, really. So, there's some things that we have to settle, and I don't think they're only by Shula alone, but that will be an interesting question to follow. Cody asked this. He says, "Hey, Tony, ask Gene for me who he honestly fears more in the division this year, Panthers or Falcons? Your honest answer."
I would say the Panthers, then the Saints. I don't even talk about the Falcons. So
you're one of us, man. Do you really think that the Falcons are getting worse though? Because they are tooling up on defense.
I get that, but when you had your heart pulled out through your throat in the Super Bowl, and you blow a 28-3 lead, I mean that has it sitting in the back of your head somewhere. As you go into the season, it's gonna be up to the coach to get them right. But this is a Panthers show. I don't really want to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. So
nice. Okay. Douglas O'Connor on the YouTube chat says, "I'm a Bucs fan. No K. Honest answer: Falcons." So anyway, I think that all right. I think we're going to be talking plenty about the Bucs and seeing if they're the threat. Exactly. But last camp story, and then is Taylor Moton is getting work at both left and right tackle in Panther minicamps. I think that this is the smallest thing that does not matter the least bit, but just shows that they're interested in making him a tackle. I don't think there's any indication that they're trying to get him on the left side. Maybe if it's just to run a little bit to see how he could work in the case of an injury.
I have to jump in here and ask a question. You're talking about the offensive line. On a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you guys with the offensive line as it is right now? Both of you. I'd get an answer from both of you.
Joe, go ahead.
I feel better about the situation of our offensive line than at any point last year. I personally am not counting on Michael Ower returning. Now, if he does, that'll be a plus and a bonus, but I'm not counting on it. I'm just not including him in feel about the offensive line. Matt Khalil is a big question mark because he was drafted very high. Some feel he's never really lived up to his potential, but he's getting a fresh start here in Carolina, and I'm sure he's going to have some pressure from his big brother to really step up his game. So I am feeling this offensive line in several years, probably.
I'm really excited, Gene. I think that what was going to be our weakness, what was our weakness, will return to being a strength. I think that last year we were very hurt by injury. You have the fact that your best player, or at least the leader of that offensive line, who is Ryan Khalil, excuse me. Now we're going to be confusing all of them for the end of time. But you have Ryan Khalil, who is the team leader. You know what I mean? Him and Cam, he's a guy that fights for Cam, that sticks up for him. They say he does a lot about calling out defenses or pass rush patterns or whatever the right terminology is. So you had him injured, missing time, maybe not playing the best early on. Then you had Michael Orr, who was mediocre at best when he was healthy, missing him. And we had nobody to go behind that. Even it got so bad at the end, we're throwing our right guard, who is Trey Turner, who is a guard. He isn't a tackle. He's a guard. And we're making him play right tackle. It went from being a good offensive line in 2015 to atrocious in 2016. I think we return. I'm not ready to say we're going to be the Cowboys offensive line, but I think that we got some good parts in the interior. I think that granted that Matt Khalil turns out and works out, or even can just stay healthy, I think we get better no matter what.
Well, based on what I've seen, last season, 2016, the offensive line was somewhat of a liability. Cam Newton, with his style of play, shouldn't be taking the hits that he takes. And I understand that some plays are design plays, but what I saw was there were times where, there were players that just knifed through the offensive line. And I know that, throughout the draft, there wasn't a whole lot that was done for the offensive line. So I was just kind of wondering, what you guys thought about, this offensive line coming back and being able to protect Cam. When you think about this, since 2011, Cam Newton has been hit 831 times.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. And to a testament to his physical strength, he's still standing and he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So that speaks volumes about him. But I just, when you think longevity and over a period of time, you have to, he's your asset, your main asset, because I can tell you as a Bucs fan, not having a starting quarterback is dreadful.
Well, I tell you one thing is Cam Newton may be standing, but his shoulder is jacked up, and that's from being slammed to the ground like 2 years ago. I believe that injury was actually suffered a lot earlier than people are saying. I think it was just intensified at the end of last season where he got repeatedly slammed down. The person who isn't standing after those 876 hits is probably Tony Dunn, who drinks every time Cam Newton gets hit. and I'm just on the floor, a sloppy mess by the end of it. All right, so next up, Brandon Beane. Turns out that the Buffalo Bills tweeted out tonight, "Sorry for taking all your personnel," essentially, or something to that effect. Brandon Beane, our former assistant GM, the guy who has been responsible for helping Dave Gettleman navigate those cap issues that we've had over the past couple of years, is now joined Sean McDermott of the Buffalo Bills to make, as one Panther fan said, the Carolina Panthers North. I think it was, or North Panthers, or Buffalo North. It was something good. I just ruined it. But the idea is that, Gene, I don't know how close you saw this, but Sean McDermott, they fired their whole staff the day after the draft. Turns out Sean McDermott poached 2 potential draft picks traded in front of the Carolina Panthers. Now they got our GM. They're signing. They got Mike Tolbert. They got Philly Brown. They are a new Carolina Panthers team. And guess what? Sean McDermott's got to deal with the Patriots.
Twice a year.
Gosh, poor fella. I guess this is good. Joe, it brought some kind of validity to our perspective from the show last week. I was listening to a podcast, and it was I feel like it was a national podcast. Cannot remember which one it was, but they were talking about how it was, this is what Sean McDermott, this is what he has to do when he has a limited network. And he is, of course, going to reach out to people that he knows and trusts and agrees with. And this is something that we were kind of targeting last week and just saying, while we think there's a mole, while it's fun to talk about the mole, it's right. It's fun to talk about, is it Area 54 or 52 or what?
51.
51. I always think of Studio 54. Right. So does Studio 54, does Area 51 exist potentially? But at the same time, they could just be a bar and a hangar.
Right.
So I guess what we're saying.
I think that's what it amounts to. It's just a limited resource pool for McDermott. So he'll just using the few options he has. I did see where they did interview some other for this GM position from other teams, but he's gonna fall back to comfort, trust, someone that he's comfortable with, trust with, has had a previous relationship with, and it just so happens it's Billy Beane.
Yep. All right. Any other Panther news that you want to talk about, and we move on to the Bucs? Oh, I got one other one that's actually related to both. It'll be a good segue, and that is yesterday ended on the NFL calendar, the day where acquiring free agents does not affect the compensatory picks. So what you could see is that guys that are more interested, or I guess maybe there is this long play. And look, Dave Gettleman has shown that's something that he's interested in the past. He has, I think, reserved some of his moves in the hopes of getting a compensatory pick. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, could this be a time that now we go and chase one of those safeties that hopefully, or some depth at safety where, because we lost, if you think about it, let's just think off the top of our head, we lose Mike Tolbert, not tremendous though, but you lose Ted Ginn Jr., you lose A.J. Klein, and I think it's about how much they play on the other team. So if they get significant playing time on the other team, that's when it can help your compensatory picks. Now we bring in
should, and potentially 2 of those 3 becoming starters.
Right. And so maybe this is the moment you could see some action on the back end a little bit. Gene, have the Bucs ever gotten a compensatory pick?
Ooh.
No,
I can't remember,
because they're always bringing in free agents.
Yeah. And in particular this year, bringing in, I guess what some people would have called the number one free agent, then from Washington.
Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson. I think many people would have agreed he's the number, or at least one of the top free agents. Yeah, that's a big move for them. So yeah, I could see, Tony, why you would think they never got the compensatory pick.
Right. All right. So some people are having stream problems on YouTube, and I do not know why that is the case, because it's working on Facebook Live. It's, of course, everything I try to get done working, there's always some sort
it could be just YouTube.
Yeah, it could be YouTube.
No offense, YouTube. No offense, but YouTube.
Yeah, I know, because they'll ban your ass. You better be careful.
Exactly.
Nah, they've actually had a lot where they've been, I guess, messing with people's minds. If you watch a lot of YouTube creators, there's been a lot of uproar since that ad thing they were doing. All right, Gene, we brought you on tonight.
I have some breaking news here, actually.
Okay.
Gene, this concerns you. At Mike in Tampa 2 reported that he is glad the Bucs have named Julia team captain. She is the one cheerleader who is truly stunningly gorgeous.
Absolutely. I can't argue with that. That's the truth.
I wanted to share that with you. I thought that was breaking news.
Hey, you know what? That's huge news. Did you see her?
Yes, there's a picture of her, and she's quite attractive.
Yeah.
I figured you would have appreciated that.
So, well, that's good. So she's the captain of the cheerleading squad?
Of the cheerleading squad, she is.
Okay. Breaking news, and the one probably Bucs thing I will go and Google. All right. Okay, so we've talked a lot about what the Panthers have done in the offseason. What they've done in preparation for the draft over the last couple of weeks. In fact, ad nauseum, to the point where it's been so crazy, like so much, I guess, expectation, so much anticipation that it's been kind of exhausting. I'm trying to play it even keel. My goal is not to get too high, not to get too low. So what we decided is to bring Gene on to talk about what's going on with the Bucs, because it's probably good to scout what the other teams are doing in preparation for, this upcoming season. And it looks like the rising star, or at least the darling of people like us in the media, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Gene, do you feel like a darling?
Actually, I have very high expectations this year. This is where I kind of put myself after Lovie Smith was fired and they brought in Dirk Cutter and they made all these changes. I feel like the general manager's done an excellent job drafting players. If you go back in the history before Jason Light and you look at a Mark Dominic and you look at a Bruce Allen, and Bruce Allen, you just have to look at his body of work. You look at what he did in Tampa while he was here, and then look what he did in Washington. It's not good. And I'll argue that with anybody that says otherwise. But you look at what Jason Light has done, bringing in a Charles Sims, and he's done very well with late round picks. And what he did in this draft, I was pleasantly surprised. I was going for safety. That was a position that I felt that the Bucs really needed to improve on, having lost a player like his name just popped out of my head. He went to Seattle. Bradley McDougall, a player who was getting a lot of time last season, and then he ends up over in Seattle. So as I was looking at the team top to bottom, I felt like the safety position is a position that needed to be addressed. However, with the first round, the number 19 pick, Tampa went in and got O.J. Howard. Now, guys, I try to stay, like you said, even keel with all this, but I'm really excited about this tight end because he's probably the most complete tight end in the whole draft. And what I mean by that is a guy that can block. He can catch. I mean, if you watch Alabama games, you've seen him. And the scary part is you haven't seen the best of him, because he doesn't want the ball. He's not asking, give me the ball, but he can play a more expanded role. The fact that he can block, the fact that he plays to the whistle and he can get downfield and block, and he has really nice hands, it's just scary. And what you saw with Cameron Brate, you have a Cameron Brate on one side and you've got a OJ Howard on the other side. Who do you defend in the interior? When you've got you talk about a Mike Evans on the outside and Deshaun Jackson. There are a lot of different weapons that they've gotten for Jameis Winston.
Mm-hmm. So I've got my question to you, Gene, about OJ Howard is, why did he slip? I mean, you guys picked like 17, right? No, not that was the Redskins.
19. There was a 19th pick.
Even worse.
Well, what you have to consider is a lot of the people above us were picking for need. They were picking because we need to fill this position. It wasn't picking best player on the board. Mm-hmm. If you look at 18 on up, other than take out the Tennessee Titans, 1 to 17, how many of those teams were picking best player on the board in your opinion?
Well, I know for us, it was best player on the board at a position of need. I don't think
best offensive player on the board.
Right, because
but that wasn't OJ Howard, because really our organization said it was that they had it narrowed down to McCaffrey and OJ Howard.
Right.
Yeah, and I'd heard that too. Right. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that Cam Newton didn't have enough weapons last year. And I don't know if you guys want to argue that with me,
we don't have to argue that at all.
You look at the running game, the running game, and then you look at who they had at wide receiver. There were just not a lot of splash plays last season for the Carolina Panthers. So that was a
year that they led the league in splash plays.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So that was like a position of need. Whereas, if they were going best player on the board, they would have grabbed OJ Howard.
I think you're right, is that I actually agree that the Panthers didn't pick. Well, maybe. I mean, we kind of split hairs between who's the best, I think when you get
the best, but it was more, what position are you lacking that, you need the most help in? And it was tight end.
Absolutely, because if you look at your roster before the draft, who's your number one running back prior to the draft?
Jonathan Stewart.
Right.
Okay.
And he's really the only running.
Right. So you definitely want to at least upgrade or have competition in that position. So you look at that, in your situation, you give somebody a chance that, because your game, the Carolina Panthers game is predicated on the run. Despite what Cam Newton does, is predicated on the run. And once the running game gets going, Cam Newton has a lot more options than he does when the running game is not going and it's all on his shoulders. So what they went out and did was they took a lot of pressure off of Cam Newton, bringing in a Christian McCaffrey. So what I'm saying is, when you go 1 to 17, the majority of those teams were picking because of need and not because of best player on the board. I think Tampa had put themselves in a position because of the successful drafts that they had, that they were able to go, hey, this is the best player on the board. We have Cameron Brate, but we can upgrade that position. So that's pretty much what they did. I mean, and not to take anything away from Cameron Brate, 8 touchdowns, 57 receptions and 8 touchdowns is nothing to sneeze at for a tight end.
But still, the acquisition of Howard is exponentially better than Brate. And taking nothing away from him. This is a tight end, that's tight end in a long time. I mean, that can do everything very well.
Yeah.
And Gronk, of course, Gronk is there.
I'm just mad that such a good player slipped that far and then helped a division player.
But again, if you look at the picks, and where they fell, These were positions of need. Every pick was almost
except for like there was some gems about between 15 and 19, like you said. I mean, think about the Redskins getting Jonathan Allen.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's best player, even if it is a need.
I think the
Derek Barnett to the Eagles.
The biggest surprise was the quarterbacks that were taken in the first round.
Yeah, and that's what changed everything up.
And the wide receivers. I don't think anybody believed that there would be 3 wide receivers taken in.
Right.
3 wide receivers taken in the top 10, 3 quarterbacks taken in the top 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was a surprise. I expected 1 to go. What's his name going so early to number 5 that went to the Titans? I can't think of the receiver.
It was Corey Davis.
Yeah, I think that was a shock. Nobody expected him to go right there. I think we expected the first receiver to be picked a little bit later.
Right.
Yeah, there were definitely some surprises, and that added to that. You just kept seeing Howard fall and fall and fall, and you're like, somebody's going to pick this guy up eventually. Yeah. And there were a few players that after we picked that I didn't want teams in our division to get.
Right.
At the very top.
And O.J. Howard is definitely at the top of that list. And let me ask you about this. Did you guys go out and get Deshaun Jackson? You pair him with Mike Evans, so you have potentially the best wide receiver core in the NFL immediately. You've been searching for an offensive weapon at tight end for some time. You finally threw the roach to the side, threw the roach out, right? And Austin Senefarian Jenkins, and you passed him to the left, and then you get this guy who, like you said, is an all-around player. I think he comes in and he could be an immediate impact to the team. How effective is he, now that you have Jack? I think that Jackson makes him better. He makes everybody better just by being
Absolutely.
out there.
Absolutely. If you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year, it was Mike Evans, then it was Adam Humphries, then everybody else. And Adam Humphries was pretty close to everybody else, in my opinion. Not taking anything away from Bucs fans, any Bucs fans that are watching, I do like Adam Humphries, but he was just he didn't really distance himself like a player should. Now, what you've gone and done is you've upgraded in that second wide receiver position, and then you bring in a Chris Godwin from Penn State, wide receiver from Penn State. He's a guy that you guys should really look out for. I feel like he's going to come in and be an impact player as well. And, for the future, I can see him competing as well. I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, we don't know a whole lot about him, but, just getting to watch some of the game film on him, and he has nice hands. He's got multiple moves out of his break. I see a guy that is not scared to block. And, with wide receivers, that's something that sometimes is very rare. Wide receivers are just the guys that catch the ball at times, but this is a guy that's not afraid to block and not afraid to get his nose in there and get dirty. So, I'm really excited. He's one of the players that I'm really hoping that, can make an impact for this team.
When did you guys grab him?
Round 3, pick number 84.
All right. So your first 3 picks in the draft, OJ, who's second?
Second pick was Justin Evans, a safety from Texas A&M.
How do you feel? You said that you needed help at safety. So in your first 3 picks, you come away with who are you? I mean, obviously O.J. Howard's the safe pick. Out of those 3 picks, you got to be feeling good as a Bucs fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The safety was a position that I looked at watching the game film from 2016. It's a position that we could definitely upgrade, and it can help. It will help this team to win games. It's going to help us with 3 and outs, getting offenses off the field. So if you can fill that hole and get a player that can come in and contribute, because round 1 picks are normally starters. Round 2, 3, and 4 picks are people that can come in and help out. They're able to contribute. And from round 5 to 7, that's just for depth. So, any of those positions, you hope for the best and hope that, you hit on at least one or two of those picks.
What's the guy, the safety's name again? One more time, Evans.
Justin Evans, safety out of Texas A&M.
All right, so tell me this is because you guys go from 2 years ago having an atrocious secondary to going out and you get Vernon Hargraves in the draft, as well as you bring in Brent Grimes, and that seemed to help significantly. Now, you guys did lose a little bit at that safety position, but you weren't able – the guys that you brought in and tried – you couldn't ever find an answer there. It seemed like for a long term. You had the heavy hitters. You had, Alteron Vernon. Was he safety?
He was a cornerback.
Okay.
He was a Pro Bowler for the Titans.
All right. So, but, that safety position, is this, you can round out that secondary with a good safety pick.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a guy that can hit, and, his coverage skills from what I've seen is pretty decent. So, again, these are things that are coachable, and if you want to go out on and get better, that's what you do. We have a guy, Jude Aje-Barima, who went to shut down U here in Phoenix, Arizona, and worked out and got better at his position, just so that he would be able to contribute to the team, and that's what he did. Again, these are players, I think, with our coaching, and to answer your question, not to jump ahead, but to answer your question, having consistent coaching, no more coaching carousel, you got the same coaching staff, and you're keeping the same players on the field and letting them get reps, that's where you get consistency in the secondary. Because if you remember going back to 2015, when Lovie Smith was here, you saw a different set of cornerbacks every single week almost. So you never knew what you were getting. And guys were scared to make mistakes, which led to a lot more problems than what it was worth. But you bring in somebody like Vernon Hargraves, a first-round pick, a Brent Grimes, and you have the right coaching staff in place, it settles everything down, and you're able to, settle down in that position. And it doesn't hurt to have, improve on your offense, your defensive line as well.
I think Gene and I have always been on the same page when it comes to this coaching recipe for success. And even if it's not Super Bowl success, just positive growth. And that is that continuity and trying to keep some consistency from year to year to where it's not just blowing everything up and starting over again. And, I think the Panthers have gone a long way in saying that's why they've stuck with Shula to this point. But it's worked out. And I think that the teams that historically have been bad, they don't give more than 3 years. No. And 3 years is to the point where I think if you join a terrible team, 3 years isn't enough time. It's enough time to start. You better start climbing the mountain a little bit. But I would say not like
at least let them finish out
playoffs
their
or
contract.
bust. Yeah, I think it's a 3 to 5 year window. But I think you when you hire a guy, I think you better believe in that dude enough to give him the time to work things out, especially if they're a newer coach. Or if you fire a guy prematurely, I think that says more about your hiring process than it does about them, and that you don't feel confident about how you made your decision in the first place.
Exactly.
It's a bad reflection on ownership.
Yeah. Right.
So, all right. So after the first 3 picks, what happened next for the Bucs in the draft?
The Bucs moved back up into the 3rd round, and they grabbed Kendall Beckwith, linebacker from LSU. And everybody has big hopes for him. And we'll see. It remains to be seen. I know that with losing Darryl Smith, who played a big part, and Devontae Bond, one of our guys that you're probably going to see getting a little bit more playing time this year. They really had to upgrade that strong side linebacker position. Excuse me. He's a guy 6'2", 243 pounds, and he's he can hit. So let's hope, and you hope that he can come in and contribute as well.
Well, also too, you gotta think this is like how you can't keep everybody going down the road, and you've got the 2 good linebackers. Help me out.
Levante David and Quan Alexander.
Yeah. If you could keep both of them, it'd be fantastic. But odds are there's an opportunity. You need to keep building some depth in there. So you don't need him to be necessarily a contributor from the beginning, but something down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And he kind of falls into that, what I was talking about with round number 4, where you have depth, first round starter,
right.
Second, third,
You're trying to cultivate a starter for the future is what you're really trying to do, just not a day one starter. So it shows that you guys, there was some priority there to trade back up into the third. What did it cost you guys a lot to do that?
Basically, it looks like it cost the 4th round pick because we didn't pick in the 4th round. It went down to the 5th round.
Yes. Okay. So then who's up next?
So in the 5th round, pick number 162, they had Jeremy McNichols, running back from Boise State. And guy has nice hands. I mean, for a running back, he really has nice hands. 4.49 speed in the 40. He's definitely one of those guys that's going to compete for, one of those positions.
And Joe, so right now you're looking at from the Carolina perspective, which the one thing that's made me scared about the Panthers draft, Joey, is how all of a sudden it has become like there is a symphony of people saying that it's a home run, that they nailed it. And then all of a sudden, once everybody says that, I'm like, oh God, what's the problem? There's something underneath here. But, we've been focusing on our picks and the need that we've done to our team. Hearing what the Bucs have done to this point in the draft, it seems like they're really making some of the more, not safe moves, but thoughtful, not even conservative, just sound
moves. And what's great about the GM is he's a personnel guy. And, if you go back again, I hate to go give history lessons, but going back through our general managers, Mark Dominic, Bruce Allen, some of our other GMs have not been so successful in finding those gems in the late rounds and stuff. So, for us, it's very refreshing to have a general manager that has the vision to see a guy that, hey, this guy, we can plug him in and he can help our team. And a lot of guys have come in and help right away. Going to the 7th round, this is like my favorite pick of the whole draft. I know that, you were talking about some of these other guys, but Stevie Tuikolovasu out of
Holy
USC.
cow, well done. I like that pronunciation. Probably practiced that all the way to work.
Yeah, I actually did.
I actually did.
And what's so amazing about him, if you listen to his story, this is a guy that went to Utah and he had a 5th year. He ended up going to USC and he lived out of his SUV. They lived on the beach. And he lived in his SUV for a couple of months before his housing was ready at USC. And he came in, he was the defensive MVP for the Rose Bowl. He played an amazing game. This guy's 6'1", 320 pounds. And, he's a guy that you're not really going to move real good. So he's one of those guys. It's a good story to hear people like that humble themselves and they go in and, they give it their all. So this is one of those stories that I'm excited for him. He's 26, I believe. He actually went on a Mormon mission and, got away from football, went on a Mormon mission, came back and, rededicated to football. So, you see where his priorities are.
Good and cardio riding that bike around.
Yeah, I guess. So this is a guy that I hope, he's one of the guys that I'm really pulling for. Hopefully they'll have his story on Hard Knocks and, maybe you guys will get to see that as well.
Joe, they got these two guys he's really excited. Douglas O'Connor on YouTube said that McNicholas is Doug Martin 2.0 with better hands. They get this guy who's the beach bum, Mormon man, who rides all over the country and does whatever he can to win the Rose Bowl or whatever, and we get a kicker and So, and a fullback and a guy that doesn't have a position. No, we're excited about it. You know, that kicker, by the way, our kicker is 6'4" now. We bought.
He'll dunk on you, huh?
We got a field goal kicker that is gonna go dunk it in the field goal afterwards. He's gonna do his own celebration. He's 6'4". Speaking of kind of feel good stories, one that is floating around on YouTube, Joe, you'll like this, is Bullware. Supposedly showed up 2 hours early for his first practice and slept in his car, and all of a sudden he's become a man with the man of heart. And I think you mentioned this last week, Joey, on the show about how much he loves, how much of a good dude you're getting. The question is like how athletically capable he is.
Right.
But he seconds your vote with sleeping in his car. He basically was so excited for school the next day he couldn't sleep.
Right. Yeah, he's going to be a great locker room guy because, he loves football, man. He loves football. And I just hope that he's able to impress enough to, if nothing else, contribute to special teams and make the roster.
So, guys, I have to ask, how is Cam Newton progressing with his healing and everything, or has he had his surgery yet?
Oh, he had his surgery. Yeah, he had his surgery at the end of March.
Yes.
Okay.
So he is a full month out of his surgery, over a month.
Yeah.
Month and 10 days. And that's a hard question to totally answer because no throwing, right? But he's been doing a lot of cardio, supposedly. You see him on the balance ball. You know, they like to stand on that platform thing with one foot or whatever. And then so the thing is they were throwing him the football on that thing. And he was underhand tossing it with his left hand, not his right shoulder. But I think that he sounds like he is moving forward. It is going to be a tight time crunch. You know, it's not going to be a good one. And I think everybody goes back to this is 2 years ago, Cam Newton had an off-season ankle surgery that a lot of these guys that have sprained their ankles a lot in their careers get, and they basically just get their stuff tightened up a little bit. And they said a 6 weeks recovery, and then 6 months later, he can play. It's just not 100%. And this is his throwing shoulder, so you don't want to rush it. You don't want to have a setback.
And I guess one of the big questions around the NFL is why did he wait so late in the offseason to do it? Is it something where he was getting it diagnosed, or why did it have to wait till this point?
And they were trying to treat it with rehab, exercises, stretching, like these, just things that low impact rehab, and it wasn't helping. So they went ahead and did the surgery.
Because he can still do all the things, he can still throw the ball. He played through the injury. I think is that if he takes a couple more big hits, Joe, it could be bad quick.
Right.
And I think it was nagging.
It was definitely the right move to make. It just seems like should have done a little bit sooner. I agree.
Yeah, and that's the big question that I had was because when I heard about where he was, having to have surgery and stuff, that's one of those things where all the hits he's taken, I personally, that would have been what I would have taken care of immediately after the season.
Well, it does raise a question about this, is that there is a question that I don't like to bring up because I'm part of the Cam Newton Secret Service. I defend that. I will jump in front of a bullet for that man. The idea that I think that we don't want to bring up is there have been whispers that the management and the coaching staff kind of walks on eggshells around Cam, and that Cam has enough authority and clout, whatever it is, star power, that he can kind of tell people, like, he won't come out of games supposedly. So the coaching staff was trying to take him out of the Bucs game. He refused supposedly. that he wanted to finish out the season. I don't know if this was the case, if this is a case of the management or the coaching staff. I feel like you can shut down Cam Newton if you really want to. I would say this is more on the coaching staff to say grow a pair. If Cam Newton is trying to boss you around at this point, it's not a bossing thing because everybody's going to be like, Cam Newton, you're the man. We all love you, bro. But, like, it's time to shut you down.
Yeah,
And
players play, coaches and coaches coach, you know.
And so I think that goes back to something, we were saying before is, like, when it comes to that hiring move, if you're firing a guy after 2 years, you probably shouldn't look at the dude you're firing as much as the dude that hired him. So I think this says something that maybe – and finally, hopefully, the Panthers staff, look, they finally go out and get Cam some weapons. They finally go out and get him some protection. Maybe they'll finally not bow down to him. And there was this odd moment last year, Joey, that showed that this was some sort of thing going on when they benched him for that stupid tie, or for the tie.
Yeah, for the tie, right.
That was very public. It was, I think it does say that they are trying to, maybe Rivera's trying to grapple with that concept.
Yeah, I think it does say that. You're absolutely right.
We don't want to talk about it because we just want to say Cam Newton pouts and he deserves to pout because he was sad and he's amazing. All right, Gene, last opponent, you guys made a lot of activity, less activity than normal in free agency, but still had to go after the big boy with Deshaun Jackson. You go for a sound draft. Positive outlook for the Bucs. Will the expectations be too much?
I feel like the Bucs at the back end of the season were learning how to win. There were games that they didn't win, but I look at injuries and stuff like that. Not making excuses. It is what it is. This is why I say my expectations are high. I think they've put themselves in a position to win games that they normally would lose. And I think with a consistent coaching staff, you have your franchise quarterback. I feel like this is a team that could go to the playoffs. So, I'm definitely on board with that.
10 Tizzy says throw a towel over Cam's head and tell him to take a timeout. I love it. Amanda Helms said, did you hear what Rivera said about Cam? He said that Cam knew the other guys were playing through injuries and he didn't want to let those guys down. Cam did make a big deal out of that. He's trying to find ways to connect continuously because it's not the most natural thing for him. When you have so much star power, I think it's difficult where he's almost like, I have to come down to your level and speak your language. And he's trying to learn how to do that. He's getting better at it. All right, so positive outlook when it comes to the draft, except specifically, I don't want you to grade it, but how did this draft differ from past drafts and why?
Well, in past drafts, you were seeing drafting for necessity instead of grabbing the best player on the board. Tampa did not have that luxury because of squandered drafts in the past and so much turnover with draft picks that once the new GM came in, it took a little bit for it to take hold. But I think you're looking at a deeper Tampa Bay Buccaneers team this year than what you've seen in previous years. So I'm definitely excited about this, and I think that you're gonna see a different team than what you saw last year.
All right, Joe, you got any last questions for Gene before we ice some mugs up?
No, not really. My one, I guess, concern or area that I think the Bucs maybe weak at is running back. I'm curious to see what they're able to do with the players that they have.
Well, yeah, Doug Martin has been, when he can stay healthy, he's been productive in so many ways. Some of it has been overinflated. If you go back to his rookie year, I think one of the things somebody pointed out to me, and this made a lot of sense, is that we do judge so many players based on what they do in fantasy football. And I had Doug Martin that year, and he scored 54 points for me in a game, and he had like 250 yards rushing, 200 yards receiving. It was like some insane game he had. And he was able in 6 games to really, not pad some stats. I mean, he earned them in those 6 games. But if you would have divided it over a 16-game stretch, it wasn't as crazy. But you say he's a rookie. He's got this. And then he had some problems. You got some problems of health. Then it comes into some other questions is that I don't really know whatever happened to him. Was he hooked on Adderall or what was he hooked on?
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it was Adderall. We're in Joe, to your question. I feel like again, the general manager is good at assessing talent. We see what he's done after Lovie Smith was gone, where he's brought in free agents who've been able to contribute. So what they see with the current running back core and the competition that they're going to have in camp, I feel like they're happy with what they have. Keep in mind, there's some offensive tackles that are coming back at J.R. Sweezy, who you didn't see last year because of back injury, and some other players that were injured. Ali Marpet going to center. Just a lot of different things that are changing on the offensive line that may help some of these other running backs, not to mention the offensive weapons that Tampa went out and got. So it's going to be interesting to look at. And I'm right at this point, and I'm not being a homer, just looking at things from top to bottom, watching Doug Martin run when he was healthy last year. I'm perfectly comfortable with him coming back after the suspension and actually contributing and helping his team win some games.
Oh, Joe, I gotta say this. Gene Stellaire said this. It's off subject, but the best. Can't wait till we face Green Bay. Corn Elder versus Randall Cobb. Corn versus Cobb. That's epic.
That is great.
That's the best one. That is the comment of the night. All right. So let's get into these ice up picks, Joe, because last week we finished at 10 o'clock right on the dot. We're at 10:02, so we'll be 10 minutes over. Joe, you ready to ice somebody up?
I am. If this ice up son is to the Carolina Bills, aka Carolina North, and their motto is "Keep Rumbling."
Well done.
I have to admit, I did steal that from Twitter. Somebody had that up on Twitter.
I love it. Keep rumbling. It is awesome.
It's sad to see McDermott go. We loved him here. He was a great defensive coordinator. Really had a brilliant mind. Learned from some of the best in football ever. Understandably, we were lucky to have him as long as we did. But then to take our assistant general manager, man, you talk about really putting it on one team. We're taking the blunt of all of this. Now picking from the Bills, and what's sweet is we get a chance at revenge because week number 2 of the NFL season, Carolina Panthers home opener will be against these Buffalo Bills, so we will have a chance to exact some justice and
payback some mo.
That's right, revenge is it. You know what? So let's I'm gonna leave it at that and say ice up, Buffalo Bills. By the way, Tony Dunn, I'm wearing my New York Yankees shirt in honor of them sweeping the Chicago Cubs.
Oh God.
And
this judge guy, I'm gonna ice you up for that. This judge guy. What?
Hey, court is in session, buddy.
What in the heck, Joe? He's 6'8" or whatever. And how can you play baseball? And how can he be any good? His strike zone is like 4 feet big.
You can't walk him.
Right.
God, he is amazing, though, I guess. Crazy. Props to the dang Yankees for being in the dumps just a year ago, 2 years ago, and total turnaround, maybe.
Baseball.
Yeah,
that's right.
Really interesting. And you know what? Is that if we are going to get swept, I'll take it from an AL team.
Amen to that, right?
Yeah. All right, Gene, you got an ice up pick for us this week?
Yes, I do. The Chicago Bears, specifically Ryan Pace. I'll throw John Fox in there too. Why not?
Why not? Don't
you bring in Mike Glennon, and you pay him more money than he's worth. He's a career backup. You'll see. I'm not just saying that because I'm just saying. Anyway,
I think
you got Mike Glennon. John Lynch puts a little bait out there, and you bite on it. You trade up, and you bring in Mitch Trubisky. You're betting the farm on this pick, and well, I guess what time will tell. Maybe I may be wrong. I'll be more than happy to come on this show if I'm wrong, but I just think that with all the holes that the Chicago Bears have and needs that they have, they're betting the farm on a quarterback. So, my thing is, you got to do something for your fans, your season ticket holders. And, I just don't see that as a wise move. So for me, my ice up is the Chicago Bears, John Fox and Ryan Pace. Ice up, son.
Ice up. My ice up pick this week it's kind of a dual ice up pick. One, it goes to anonymous person who I cannot remember who it was. It was one of my friends. Yes, that's right. One of my friends somewhere, and it was when the Straight Outta Compton movie came out, right? And I'm not necessarily an expert on gangster rap or anything, but going back to when I was, and these guys aren't gangster rap, this is just old school, is my first tape. This kid who was 9 years old gave me 2 tapes. He gave me that Beastie Boys joint that had Brass Monkey on it, right? And he gave me, remember them singles back in the day that had 2 songs? Oh man, you love a single tape back in the day. And I got that Public Enemy 911 is Joking Your Town. My first 2 tapes, I think I was 6 years old. I can remember it. And so, I kind of like this stuff a little bit. I grew up. NWA was a little bit before my time, a hair before I could appreciate it. But still, we know about these things. So this guy, when the movie came out, goes out and tells me, so I think I know something about Ice Cube because Joe, speaking of this goes back for Joe and I when I was a youngin'. Joe was the one that was you got to listen to Lethal Injection, The Predator, right? And I love these 2 albums. I'm like a 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid listening to Lethal Injection, The Predator, and Ghetto Bird is one of my favorite songs by Ice Cube. So the guy's like, oh, I went and saw Straight Outta Compton. I was like, yeah, man, and so I tried to start talking about rap music with him, and I was like, look, it's pretty clear. Ice Cube is the lyricist of this group. And it is the truth, man. I'm sorry. This mug is the guy who is the rapper of the group. And he was like, well, the movie tried to depict Dre as the mastermind. So last night I go and I bounce on Showbox, which is where you could steal if you've got an Android joint. You go Google Showbox and you can get all the stolen movies out of Russia. And you can stream them. And I was watching Straight Outta Compton. I got 3/4 of the way. Fantastic movie, by the way. Very, very entertaining and well done, it seemed. And I'm going, this guy who tried to make me feel inadequate in front of these people, trying to say that I was off the mark with this Ice Cube comment being the best rapper of the group, Eazy-E being kind of the front man of the group, and Dre just being the business dude or beats guy behind the scenes, and he tried to make me feel inadequate. That's exactly what the damn movie depicted. So anonymous guy, I'm going to tell you this, is Ice Cube is the best rapper. He is the poet of the group, and he's the guy that spits them bars. But this is why I got on talking about this tonight. So I watched that movie last night. I'm driving home, and I pull up the stoplight, and a guy beside me in an Escalade or something, and he was in his 30s too, and he's listening to rap music. And I'm like, you can hear it through his windows. You don't have the windows down. It won't bump in. You could just hear it. You know what I'm saying? So he's listening hard to this mess. And it was blip, blat, throwing money on the floor. Bling, jang, hoes at the door. Jeep, jank, you're painting the liquor store. And I was like, so I watched this Straight Outta Compton mess. I've been kind of reminiscing back in the day about listening to all that Ice Cube stuff. this year I was talking about one thing and I used whoop whoop Sound of Police as one of the examples in class. KRS-One just blowing it up, and then these rappers today going blip blap, throwing paper on the floor. You guys are some weak mugs. Weak. You can't even. I mean, you ain't got no rhymes, man. I mean, I'm back to guys. So you know what? Going back to the day. Those guys, KRS-One, NWA, Ice Cube, later on to Biggie and Tupac and all this. These guys slayed. They slayed. They were so smart and so quick and so clever and so amazing. And this whack-ass shit right now. So, Anonymous Man and whack weak rappers. Tony Dunn is icing you up. All right, guys. This is the C3 podcast, and we're gonna get out of here tonight. Gene, thanks for joining us, brother. Thanks
for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I'm not gonna ask you to spit bars, but I will say, what's your Twitter handle, and where can they find your podcast?
You can reach me at Super Heavyweight, and you can find my podcast on YouTube at Buc What You Heard. And you can go on YouTube and also SoundCloud. You can find me at Buc What You Heard as well. Usually the podcasts come out about an hour after the show, so you have to wait a little bit, but I definitely get them out the same night.
Nah, that's what we do too. Guys, first of all, the podcast got one of the dopest names out there. And he's got a great slogan. You follow me, I follow you back. Joe, tell them where they can follow you.
Guys, you can find me on Twitter at Joe Leonardo.
Guys, this is C3 Podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com. We ask you to subscribe. We ask you to share. We ask you to support. Check out Patreon, Stitcher, iTunes. Let everybody know this is where Panther fans come together on Tuesday nights. And I guess that is it. So we'll be hanging out. Joe, I'll catch up with you later. And as always, I gotta shut down these feeds now, and so there's like so many buttons to click. Like, where are they? They're missing. They're missing. End stream, where are you? I don't even know where it is.